And lack of interest and depression, when turned outward, can give rise to paranoia and fantasy of revenge. So you have the two. One can go this way and the other one can go that way. But instead of going either way, in or out, what you need to do is call out for help. Say, I need help. That's where humility is good. You humble yourself. And that's a good thing because you need help. When it is outwardly directed, humiliated fury unfortunately creates additional victim, often including innocent bystanders. So don't be a victim. Be victorious in your life. When it is inwardly directed, the resulting
Welcome
is
to Flora. Get ready for empowering talk.
Welcome to the Flora Padilla Show. It's so good to have you today. I want to remind you that I have 3 books for sale. They sell at Amazon. And if you want to buy these ones, I have a few left on He Rescued Me. And I have a few on Overcomers Against All Odds. So let me know. Call me up and say you want to buy both of them or all 3 of them. But anyway, today I'm going to be speaking on a topic that's important to understand why people humiliate people, or why you feel you're always being humiliated. And humiliation is an emotion. So I hope you've noticed that that's what I'm speaking on is emotions, because our emotions are very important because they affect our whole body. And if we know how to control our emotions and how to channel them correctly, we'll do really well. We'll have good relationships. We'll get along with most people that you communicate with. You'll probably have many friends. You'll probably, in other words, when you're healed of your emotions and they're steady and stable and sound, you have a sound mind, you're able to relate to people better and just enjoy life better, because you don't have to be worried about those things that the emotion causes. So today, my topic is humiliation. It is an emotion felt by a person whose social status, either by force or willingly, are lower. By someone in good standing, authority or privilege of a person is in a higher level. It can be determined by occupation, education, religion, background, culture, and sometimes gender. Social status can be determined by any of them. That can reduce someone to a lower position in one's own eyes or others' eyes, to make someone ashamed or embarrassed. Humiliation is a humility of pride, which creates great embarrassment and shame, or leads to a state of being humbled or reduced to humility or submission. Example: someone is asked to sing at a talent show. That person hopes they would not humiliate themselves. When they sing and they mess up, she messed up. She feels like she's humiliated in front of all those people. So it will bring embarrassment, sometimes shame, because she messed up. Or she may never sing again. Or she can shake it off and learn from it. So you have a choice right there. Humiliation involves disgrace of honor and dignity, and with that, loss of status and standing. We all make certain status claims, however modest they may be. For example, I'll give an example. She can say after she messed up, I'm a competent singer, I am happily single parent, or even I'm just a human being. We must realize in life we will make mistakes, and it's okay to make mistakes. There's nothing wrong in making mistakes. In this example, we do not dwell on our mistakes. So she decided, I'm just a human person, and we all make mistakes. That's a good attitude. Can someone be put down by a relative to a to a humiliated person. Being put down is sometimes perceived by current status of what you think of yourself or what people have told you. And of course, I always say lies, lies, lies. That's what I have on my book, He Rescued Me, because we have been lied all our lives. For example, a writer who thinks she has a certain level of fame and respect feels humiliated by a devastating review from an important writer. You could either accept it and say you'll do a better job of writing the next time, and some will just stop writing. Additionally, someone can be put down relative to the person who caused the humiliation. What does it mean to feel humiliated? The feeling when someone has deliberately done something to put you down or make you look bad in the eyes of others. You feel you have no power over the situation. You feel humiliated when someone deliberately does something that makes you feel low or look bad in the eyes of others. Those are not good things. Can a humble person be humiliated? The truly humble person cannot be humiliated, because the spirit of humility is one of the 7 main spirits of Christ. The spirit of humility reduces our need for self-justification and allows us to admit to and learn from our mistakes. That's the good kind of humility, because humility reduces our need for justification. It might be better understood as Jesus was raised so that we can be justified. So when you know how important you are to God, and you know that He's already approved of you, most likely you won't have a problem with humiliation, because whoever's humiliating is the one with the problem, and you'll recognize that right away. And that's when you know that you are healed in your emotions, because you don't take it personal. You figure the person that's doing the humiliating is the problem. Godly justification comes through Jesus Christ. On the other hand, it explains the self-justification is simply the act of making excuses for oneself. Self-justification allows us to admit to and learn from our mistakes. And our ego stands down. And remember last week I talked about that. Shame is private and humiliation is public. What is the opposite of humiliation? While humility is considered a strength and humiliation is hurtful, that's the difference. One gives you strength and the other one it hurts your heart. Appreciation is the opposite of humiliation. Humiliation involves an event that demonstrates unequal power in a relationship when you are in the lower position and unjustly. Someone uses bad language to address you by shaming or embarrassing you. This is meant to make you feel foolish, self-conscious, and flustered or humiliated. And again, if you get your emotions healed, and then your mind becomes sound, you have a well-balanced, sound mind, you're able to recognize people that have these issues, and instead of embarrassing them, you could probably help them, because if you already are sound, you probably can help these people. I'll give you an example. That person insults or puts you down, demeaning comments that make you feel low or worthless. Example, you are a disgrace. That's what they're saying. You are a disgrace, discounting. In this case, the act is display of power between the humiliator and the humiliated person. That happened to me with a pastor a long time ago, probably over 34 years ago, with a pastor that was put in a position higher than my position at that time. I was a leader for the youth, but I felt that he wasn't qualified to that position because he had a lot of pride. and he seemed like a really nice person. Oh, really nice person. So I kind of got caught off guard because he was just really nice, but he wasn't. Everyone in his church would complain to me about how bad he was leading the church. So I decided, I have the courage. I will go to him. I will talk to him, and I'm sure that he'll listen. So I went to him to tell him what the church was saying to me about his leadership. Not to humiliate him, but to help him. My intentions was to help him to become a better leader, a better pastor. But he lived in a make-believe world, because he thought everybody thought he was doing a great job, and it was the opposite. I mean, no one was happy in that church. I then became an enemy to him. Instead of him appreciating that I had the courage to go up to him and tell him, what was going on. Instead of embracing me because I had the courage to tell him the truth, he thought I was trying to meddle with his flock, and all I wanted was for him to see the problem he was creating, because he was the one that was creating it. He knew my potential. He would tell the leaders in our leadership class that I had a cluster of gifts. I was doing everything I could do so the church would prosper and grow, because I really, I was just doing a lot of things in that church so the church would prosper and grow. So I then became a threat to him, because I wanted the church to prosper and the church to know that I cared enough to talk to the pastor about the problems in the church. So the humiliator is the pastor. Shows that he has a higher position to the humiliated, me, by putting me down without consequences. That's what he thought. But I left the church. That was the consequences. He came to ask me back after 2 weeks, because I said I'll give him 2 weeks, so that he could understand that the reason I did that, it was to help him, not to help me, but to help him. And that way the church would do better. But in 2 weeks, I committed myself to another pastor, another church, because that's how fast it happened. And it was 2 weeks in a day when I ran into him, and he asked me to come back. But I told him I had already committed myself to another pastor at a different church, that it was too late. Because see, what happened is he did not appreciate me. He was humiliating me, not mentioning my name in the leadership meetings, but the church knew what was going on. People can readily be humiliated through more passive means, such as being ignorant or overlooked, taken for granted, or denied a certain right or privilege, because that's what they do to punish you. That is what the pastor did to me, and that is what happened to me. But I left because I didn't feel like he had the right to do that. Yes, I humbled myself, and but he kept doing it in an indirect way where it was obvious that he was, doing it in a way where he thought that, I don't know. I don't know. I can't think for him, but that's what happened. So I left. I didn't want to leave the ministry. I had been there almost 14 and a half years. But because of the split on the church, they put a person there that wasn't qualified. Some potentially humiliating episodes ought to be kept as private as possible. And I'll give you an example. Okay, being rejected by someone you love may be crushing, but it is not humiliating. But being cheated by one spouse, and this becomes public knowledge, is highly humiliating. So there's a difference. Humiliations need not to be accompanied by shame. Additionally, someone can be put down relative to the person who caused the humiliation. In this case, the act is a display of power between the humiliator and the humiliated person. So, because his position was higher than mine, he felt that he had the right to do that. And he thought there's no consequences, because he felt, well, she's been in this ministry for 14 and a half years. She's not going to leave now. And I said to myself, I wouldn't have left, but under the circumstances, I had no choice. A person who suffers from severe humiliation could experience major depression, suicidal states, and severe anxiety states such as post-traumatic stress disorder. Because this happens to a lot of people, because people humiliate people like if you're going to scold somebody, you should do it in private, because especially with a child, like there's a lot of people there, and the child starts to act up. What you do is pick up the child and take him to another room, and you scold them all by themselves, instead of embarrassing him in front of everybody, because that'll stay with that person until they get that area healed. But that happens. That's why we have so many people depressed, suicidal states, severe anxiety, because of all that. Because we know that a lot of the men from Vietnam came back with post-traumatic stress disorder, and it's pretty bad if they don't get the right medication or the right counseling, because it can turn into depression. The loss of status, like losing a job or being labeled as a liar or discredited unfairly, could cause people inability to behave normally, because there's people right now that are losing their jobs. A lot of people are losing their businesses, and so it's unfairly. So I'll finish on the next segment, but don't go leave me. Welcome back to the Flora Padilla Show. It's like I left out, I was talking about how when you lose a job, like right now, many are losing their jobs, and it's hard because it's Christmas, and a lot of them are probably feeling depressed. We pray that there won't be anyone committing suicide. We just lift them up today, Father, that no one commits suicide in this holiday. And a lot of the men from Vietnam had post-traumatic stress disorder. And like I said, if they're not handled the right way, get the right counseling or medication, some of them will go into major depression. And another thing too is, I'm so glad and I'm happy that I haven't heard anything like a man going in and killing people in stores, or crazy people. Well, the reason I said that is because humiliated individuals could be provoked and crave for revenge, and some people could feel worthless, hopeless, and helpless, creating suicide thoughts if justice is not met. So that's why it's important to have topics like this and to talk about them. And so if there's anyone out there that's feeling all those feelings that I have shared, know that there's a way out. There's always hope. So you have hope. So don't look at your depression. Don't look at your circumstances, but look to God for an answer, because He'll come through for you. Don't ever get to that place where it's hopeless and you're helpless. Or some of them, what they do is join gangs, because it also leads to new insights and new groups, because they feel they don't belong, or they've been humiliated all their life and they just want to belong somewhere. So that's why some of those young people join gangs. And what we got to do as adults, as sound people, is be able to help those people. And I hope that I'm giving you some kind of encouragement today that you have hope, because there's always hope. Don't ever think that there's no hope. There's always help. And don't be ashamed to ask for help. I know some of you have been humiliated all your life, but you know what? There's a cure for that. God can help you and heal you in that area. Feelings of humiliation can produce humiliated fury, which would, when turned inward, can result in lack of interest and depression. So, like I say every week, I say this every week, you have to make yourself do things. You have to push yourself to do things. And lack of interest and depression, when turned outward, can give rise to paranoia and fantasy of revenge. So you have the two. One can go this way and the other one can go that way. But instead of going either way, in or out, what you need to do is call out for help. Say, I need help. That's where humility is good. You humble yourself. And that's a good thing, because you need help. When it is outwardly directed, humiliated fury unfortunately creates additional victim, often including innocent bystanders. So don't be a victim. Be victorious in your life. When it is inwardly directed, the resulting is self-hate and renders victims incapable of meeting their own needs. And always remember this, that we can't do it ourselves. We always need someone or somebody to help us. So don't think you can do it alone, because we can't. Let alone having energy available to love and care for others. Because a lot of times people marry this type of person, and if they can't love themselves, they can't love you like you need to be loved. So always remember that. Don't get yourself involved in that kind of relationship. In either case, those who are consumed by humiliation, fury, are absorbed in themselves or their cause, wrapped in wounded pride. And that's kind of like the ego person. Like, in other words, they're hurting so bad inside because they've made so many mistakes. Their lives just doesn't go nowhere. They keep repeating the same mistake over and over again, and they get to the point where they finally get this wounded pride, and they're wrapped in it, and they become hard, and they start to kind of look down on everybody because they're hurting. In other words, humiliation and isolation are experienced as physical pain. So they're hurting physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and financially, because it affects all 5 things because of the emotions. See, the emotions is one of the most important things to address, because if we don't address those emotions, then we'll have problems, and not only mentally, emotionally, but you'll have them physically also, and it'll cause financial problems also. It could cause people inability to behave normal. And you say, well, what's wrong with that person? I mean, have you ever heard that people get married 5 or 6 times, or they go out with different men, different women? They just can't find anyone, and it's because it's not them, it's you that needs to find yourself and get your life in order. And as soon as you get your life in order, things will be well and healthy. Humiliation has a universal aspect which applies to all human beings. It is the feeling of being put down, made to feel less than one feels oneself to be. So if you're that person, somewhere, somehow, something went wrong. Maybe someone humiliated you and you never got over it. Maybe when you were a teenager, maybe when you were a child, and you remember that, and it keeps going over and over in your mind. Well, today's the day that you ask God to deliver you from that, because He will. The minute you say, I don't want this problem anymore, I don't like this feeling anymore, God's there to rescue you. You probably know many of the more obvious signs of mental and emotional abuse. But when you're in the midst of it, it can be easy to miss the persistence undercurrent of abused behavior. So you might not even be aware of it, but that's why I'm here, to make you aware of things that are not normal. And you might think, well, I'm normal, but yet you have issues in dating or with your parents or with your children, and you can't seem to break through. It is in the abuser's words and action, as well as their persistence in those behaviors. Remember last week I said it's the way you approach things, and I gave you examples how you approach people, and I gave you examples of what right things to say, because if we approach it correctly, we won't have problems communicating. The abuser could be your spouse or other romantic partners. They could be your business partner, your parent, or a caretaker. No matter who it is, you do not deserve it, and it is not your fault. In other words, it's you just happen to attract the wrong people in your life, and you have to be careful on that. Because I used to know this person. He would go in and out of prison, and he'd go help me at the church, and he would marry the most beautiful people. They had good jobs, they had good positions, and they did well. But yet they would marry a person that had been in prison, a person that had drug problems, alcohol problems. And I'd say, how did these nice women get these people that abuse themselves? Because really they're abusing themselves. I would have a hard time understanding that. But then one day the Lord looked at me and He says, you were one of them. I said, yep, I sure was. So no matter, you don't deserve it. And how do you recognize it? And what can you do next? Well, like today, I'm healed, I'm delivered, I'm set free, so I can spot things right away. Right away. I know people's motives, their agendas, because you can see. In other words, you have 20/20 vision. You can see spiritually. Humiliation and criticizing. That's one of the things. Those are two flags. If a person hurts you and humiliates you or criticizes you and doesn't do it the right way, that's a red flag. These tactics are meant to undermine your self-esteem, okay? But if you don't have a problem with your self-esteem, they can't do nothing. The abuse is harsh, whether big or small. In other words, I've mentioned this many times. Well, he doesn't say that many bad things to me. Well, he shouldn't be saying any bad things to you. Here are some examples. Name calling. They will call you stupid. They'll call you a loser. Those are, I don't know about you, but if somebody called me stupid, that'd be the beginning and the end. I wouldn't be able to even be around. Or if they even called me a loser, I would just say, wait a minute, this person needs help, and if they want help, I can help them. But I won't accept any of those words. Those are character assassination. This usually involves the word always. So if you hear the word always, you're always late, you're wrong, you're messing up, disagreeable, and so on and on. That goes to show that there's an issue there. Basically, they say you're not a good person. That's what they're telling you. And some do it by yelling, screaming, swearing, are meant to intimidate you and make you feel small. So all those are symptoms of humiliation. It might be accompanied by fist pounding or throwing things. And remember when I shared on the ego, where the son talked about his dad, that he had those two personalities. They usually have those two personalities. One is good and one is bad. So public embarrassment. They pick fights. They expose your secrets or make fun of you of your shortcomings in public. And there's different things there. And I'm going to finish with body language. You know how they shake their eyes, they shake their heads. That's the way they're communicating. So I hope I can see you next week, and I believe that the subject, the topic is codependency, and codependency is a big subject, and I'm an expert on that word. So I hope you will join me next week, and I hope you liked what I shared today. And if you did, put like on the page, put like, and then make a comment, and just share it with somebody that might need it. Or if you need it, you know, I hope you realize that this is for all of us, because we all sometimes, not all the time, but we sometimes fail, even ourselves. So don't forget to buy my books. And also, if you have a testimony or something you want to share, so I can share it on my website. It's Mending Broken Hearts Ministries.org. And also my email's florapadilla@aol.com. So if there's anything that I have said today, send me a message, whatever your needs are. Let me know. Fill out the form. There's a form you can fill out. So, you know, and I can help you, you know, because I'm telling you, when you have a sound mind and you've been healed from your emotions, it's a good place to be. So I will see you next week. Thank you so much. Bye.